Without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Amir for an update on the latest research. And Amir, take it away.
Well, thank you, Chris, for that very kind introduction. Hello, everyone. Great to be back. I'm going to get things moving here. And oh, the slides are not moving. There we go. All right, so wave 17 already. Can you believe it? We are already on the 17th wave of our travel sentiment study that we've been running since the very beginning of March when our country went into lockdown, and been tracking, polling 1,000 American travelers every couple weeks. This latest data was just fielded last Wednesday and Thursday. It was just released this morning, so you're one of the very first sets of eyes to see this data here today. So let's jump right into the numbers. And I think the theme for this week's report is stabilization. And then we'll couple that with a little bit of frustration on the traveler side, especially when it comes to health and safety. We'll talk about that near the end here. So 73% of travelers planning to travel in the next 6 months will be changing their travel plans due to the pandemic. About 47% have reduced their travel plans in some form or fashion. About 41% are canceling their trip altogether. A little over a quarter are changing from flying getaways to drive market getaways. And you know, there's still a little bit of that fall travel bookings that have been there for international travel. And you know, with the EU reopening, we're putting the US on the naughty list, and Canada and Mexico effectively closed non-essential travel through at least the end of August. Folks are just kind of tired of delaying, and they're canceling those remaining trips and switching to the domestic travel. So as we look at the next slide here, you can kind of see the roller coaster that we've been through here. From, you know, kind of peaking in early April with 85% of travelers changing their plans, and then we got down to about 69%, and now we're back up to about 73 there. And again, just with the news of the surges and lockdown and coming out of lockdown and so forth, you'll see the roller coaster pattern quite a bit here. Looking at the next data here, this is an encouraging sign. You can see back, or you can see that there's a good delta here again, where the volume of people who've reduced their trips versus those who've canceled altogether is now in favor of those who've reducing their travel plans. We saw this happening in late May, early June, and then the news of the continuing surge has happened, and things kind of went backwards. We want people changing plans, not canceling plans, obviously, because if they're just changing plans, they're going. They're going to be moving. Maybe they're taking shorter getaways and so forth, and versus canceling altogether. So some optimism there, and hope it keeps trending back in the right direction. But again, the roller coaster pattern. Let's keep moving here. We can see that a quarter of folks have been changing from flying to driving destinations. That's been a very consistent pattern over the last few months, and I expect that to continue for at least the near to midterm future. And then, of course, we've seen what's happening with the international market. As I talked about it 2 weeks ago, you saw was a spike where 20% were changing. That was right around the time where the EU was reopening, but it had been announced that the US was not part of that deal. So let's take a look at the next slide here. Every week, as you know, we ask folks about 3 key factors that would impact their decision to travel in the next 6 months. Transportation and the economy concerns continue to be pretty low, and no surprise, fear of coronavirus is the big dog in that fight there. Now, the good thing about the trending is we can see that despite all the news and the kind of the setback of the surging pandemic, especially in a lot of resort area destinations that opened really quickly back in late May, early June, and so forth, we have still seen this volume of indicating coronavirus will greatly impact our decision to travel, of hovering around that upper 40s to low 50s mark there. So it's reinforcing this whole theory that the consumer mindset is changing in terms of waiting out the pandemic to being able to figuring out how to travel within the confines, constraints of the pandemic. So again, cautiously optimistic that didn't spike heavily when we saw the surge numbers spiking. Looking at the next slide here, the economic concerns historically have been very low throughout this pandemic. In fact, this week's data you can see is the lowest percentage showing great concern since the beginning of this survey. Again, a lot of folks have downsized their travel, right? They're maybe driving instead of flying. They are maybe doing lesser expensive accommodations, or seeking out the great outdoors experiences. So they're camping or doing an RV experience, and the gas prices are very low still. And then also we've got simple fact that a lot of people didn't spend. These are American travelers. They had some travel money. They haven't really spent that. So again, reinforcing that big bubble of pent-up demand. It's not about if I'm going to travel or not. It's about how do I travel given the current conditions. And then to the next slide here, we will see that the $64,000 question we always ask is very simply, are you going to travel in the next 6 months? And you can see historically, no matter how bad it's gotten so far, that number has never gone below 2/3 of the American traveling public. So again, big ball of pent-up demand. You've all heard me say this before, kind of running into that wall of fear. But guess what? People are starting to figure out how to go over or around the wall of fear. Not in the volume we want yet, but it's getting. But all is not lost. Let's look at the next things here. So let's talk about when we ask these folks as travelers about a few questions as residents of their own communities. We want to gauge their support for opening up their community to visitors. We want to gauge how they feel about just traveling outside of their own community. And of course, the safety of dining and shopping in your own community. We remain a very divided country, quite frankly. And there you can kind of see how it splits pretty much across 3 different distinct camps there. And when we look at them individually, you can see historically that supporting opening up community visitations, since the surge, we've gone down a little bit, and obviously that's one of the more concerning statistics for us, because these are travelers telling us they still don't feel comfortable with visitors into their community. So we've got that inward pivot that a lot of marketers have done. A lot of destinations have done to help get their residents moving. The community is so essential, because if they dip their toe in the water, they will feel more comfortable. So again, when we look at this, again, feeling safe outside their community, this again reinforces a little bit of an uptick from the last survey to this one, reinforcing that people are just trying to figure it all out and decide for themselves, what's that level of risk they're willing to accept. And it's on a very personal, individual basis. And then we asked a question this past week that we've asked twice before in this survey. And we were asking these travelers, what information or cues are you looking for to tell you that it is safe for you to plan and go ahead and take your trip there? And not surprisingly, it's the official advice from the CDC or other federal government health experts. They want to hear from Dr. Fauci, Dr. Birx, et cetera. And they find that the most reassuring. And then, it kind of goes down from there, from state and local elected officials, appointed health officials, et cetera. There. Go all the way down, only 17% advice from the White House Coronavirus Task Force, 14% deals and offers from tourism industry promoting travel in the next month or 2. That's such a low number, folks. Keep that in mind. You cannot discount your way into recovery. Yes, there's a small group that has been, that is looking for deals and so forth, and everybody's always wanting a deal right now. But that will drive you a little bit incremental revenue maybe, but it's not going to get you towards recovery, and that rate will take forever to get back there. And of course, it doesn't matter if Disney World's reopening, is what the traveler's telling us. Let's go to the next slide here, and we can see when we overlay this question versus the 2 previous times we asked, this is our biggest headline today. Folks, American travelers are frustrated. They are losing confidence because all this back and forth between, you've all been seeing it, hearing it in the news, and how it's playing out back and forth between federal and state officials, elected officials versus health officials, and so forth. Do we wear masks? Don't we wear masks? Do we send kids to school? Don't we send kids to school? Regardless of where you fall on the issue, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is, for American travelers, it is a point of frustration, and you can see that that there's been significant drop off in confidence here over the last couple months as we've been asking the questions. It's been getting worse and worse there. So wrapping things up, we also looked at, when we overlay this with some other health and safety questions that we've had before. This is one that we did last month about the health and safety factors that are important to travelers for considering activities. So they lost confidence, but they still want to know what the plan is. So destinations, don't give up. It's so important. Destinations, accommodations, attractions, tell the guests what to expect when they arrive. They want to know, they want to understand that, and they want to see you wear masks. They want to see you doing everything, best practices, mitigating risk, and they want to clearly communicate it. So if there's not all that confusion, keep your communication clear. And again, in case you missed this 2 weeks ago, we revealed this one. The American public, almost 60%, will prefer a destination that has some type of mask ordinance in place. 35% will only visit destinations that require the use of masks in public. 9% will lean against it, but only 3% will absolutely not visit a destination that required the use of masks in public. That's a lot of information in a very short time period. I'm going to go ahead and turn this back over to Chris, and you can find everything else you want to find on this topic on our website or on the Miles Communication Center.
Thank you so much, Amir. And yes, please take advantage of those resources. There's a 2-page summary plus the individual slide deck available at that site, plus all the past editions. I've summarized the research and a range of other sort of critical best practices around recovery, particularly in terms of health and safety in this blog, which is tied to a 2-part blog about essentials for reopening and the recovery of tourism. And one of the key messages that we've seen, some research done by another partner organization, Arrival. This was highlighted at Destinations International. Only 1 in 5 attraction and activity and tour companies indicated that they'd received guidelines and support from DMOs on reopening. And there was a significant amount of feedback from those companies that they're looking for that direction. So a critical area for DMOs to provide more clarity. And you've seen from Amir the critical issues around mask wearing, having clear, consistent health, safety, hygiene, cleaning standards, etc. in your organization. But let's pick up this theme of the outlook for the balance of the summer, indeed the balance of the year. We're going to ask a poll now. So for your own destination, what is the outlook for travel through the balance of 2020? So you've got 5 options here. Is it equal or higher? Do you anticipate in terms of visitor arrivals and spending versus the same period 2019? Do you think it's going to be down 1 to 30%, down 30 to 60%, down 60% or more, or frankly, you just don't know it all? So I'll be asking Amir for his opinion in a moment. If he had to pick one of these answers, given his crystal ball that the research provides. In fact, Amir, why don't you jump in now and provide some feedback? Which would you choose out of these options for the United States as a whole?
Yeah, I think for 2020, for the 4th quarter, I think somewhere between the 31% to 60%. Just based primarily on the fact that meetings and groups are still a challenge, obviously, almost non-existent right now in terms of also business travel being strongly curtailed. A lot of companies, still a lot of corporate travel managers, not eager to send their folks on the road non-essentially. Because until there's some type of treatment or vaccine, so that is still that's going to be kind of the anchor that weighs us down a little, quite a bit from that perspective. Leisure travel incrementally will continue to build there, and especially that regional drive market obviously is going to be kind of the saving grace, the silver lining in all of this. So that's what we're looking at.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's bring up the results. So you see, obviously we've got a lot of budding research experts out there, Amir, they agree with you in terms of the majority.
Oh,
Slight majority, believe 31 to 60%. The next largest is a little bit more pessimistic, 60% or more, followed by 1 to 30%. Yeah, Delta Airlines announced this morning that they were down 72% since March. And I think those sectors such as business travel, conventions, meetings, major events, even sports related travel, we're obviously seeing, empty stadiums, all of those are going to be down significantly more than, the 30 to 60%. So they're going to be the last parts to come back.